How's everyone doing today? Glad it's Friday. I am too. I think I could have taken more of this week. Right. Okay.
I just can't even see the audio levels when I'm sitting there,
Okay.
but it should be fine.
I'm trying to remember what class I am. If it's 89 or 90, it was kind of, I started working at the American and that kind of
Oh, so you were working.
delayed my graduation a little bit. I think it was 90, December 90 actually.
Mm-hmm. Whitney has a similar story because she started working over at WDAM
Yeah,
while
yeah.
she was here, and she said the only reason she finished because they told her she had to. Like you have to finish.
And my first job over there was on the copy desk.
Mm-hmm.
And back then I had to get in there at 4 in the morning. It was just like, oh. Sometimes I'd do that, go to class, then come back. It was like,
Bless you, 'cause Mobile and stuff.
right.
Which is fine. I want to be respectful of you guys' time because it's already 11 o'clock. So my name is Nicole Cyprian. I am the director of the Roy Howard Community Journalism Center. Thank you for joining us for our latest edition of Media Mentors. It's our first of the fall, so I appreciate everyone being here. And it is an honor and a privilege to be able to introduce this month's Media Mentor. So if you've ever wondered who's keeping an eye on Mississippi's politicians when no one else is, today's media mentor is your guy. Geoff Pender is the politics and government editor of Mississippi Today, and he's been covering the ins and outs of Mississippi politics for more than 30 years. A proud Southern Miss journalism grad to the top, Geoff has led award-winning political coverage at the Sun Herald, at the Clarion-Ledger. He's worked at the Hattiesburg American, and now he helps steer investigative reporting that holds state leaders accountable. He's sharp, fearless, and probably knows where all the political bodies are buried, metaphorically, of course. Please help me welcome our media mentor, Geoff Pender.
Thank you very much. Thank you. 30, I was trying to figure it out a minute ago, some 37 years ago, I would have been sitting there. I can't tell you how much that weirds me out to say 37 years for one thing. Started my journalism career right here at the Student Prince. I still remember my first byline, and I was undecided. I had been a chemistry major And that wasn't working out well at all. Chemistry was not for me. I was trying to figure out what to do. In junior college, I had dabbled with a magazine they had. So got kind of interested here, had a friend working at the Prince, and I did that first byline story. I traipsed over to some other building and learned about the research being done on cochlear ear implants. Just riveting. But one thing that struck me, I was going to have to find a job, something to do while I was in school or whatever, and had been working for my uncle's insulation company, which was no fun, my dad's company doing construction stuff, hard work. I went and did this interview, came back to the Prince office, typed it up, and they paid me like a whopping sum of like $2 per copy inch. So I made, $26 for this story. I'm thinking, my God, that was easy. This feels fraudulent. They paid me to do this. All I did was went and talked with somebody and came back and wrote down what they said. It's like, that's crazy. I don't know. I think over the years I have felt that way sometimes, like, maybe I shouldn't. This is kind of fun. Maybe I shouldn't be paid for it. But that goes away and something else happens. Yeah, that's where it started. I hope you guys weren't expecting a prepared speech today. I don't really have one. Was hoping you guys will have some questions for me or whatever. But anyway, she mentioned I started out at the Student Prince, but even before I graduated, I went to work for the Hattiesburg American doing fun things like writing obituaries and covering Friday night football games, whatever they would let me do. Worked at the American for several years, did a stint in North Carolina for a weekly paper near Winston-Salem, eventually ended back up in Mississippi at the Sun Herald, and I was there almost 20 years, including during Katrina. That was quite the event, which we won the Pulitzer for, our coverage of Katrina's aftermath and recovery. I went to the Clarion-Ledger in Jackson after that, and about 10 or 12 years of my time at the Sun Herald, I was doing politics and investigative stuff. Went to the Clarion-Ledger as the politics and investigative editor. Now I'm at Mississippi Today. I've been 3 places doing the same job now. We cover the legislature, state government, and a lot of spin-off investigative work that comes from that. Like I said, I'm hoping you guys have some questions, because you can see how painful this would be to have me sit up here and talk. One thing I think I talked with Nicole about, I struggled whether I would mention it today. This has been an insane week. I think we all saw what happened in Utah. Just unbelievable. I've been covering local, state, national politics, all my adult life, and I still can't wrap my head around that. The main thing I would say, you folks are the next generation coming up. Figure out a way to stop that. I can't think of anything else to say about that, honestly. Let's all figure out a way to stop that. Anyway, I could sit up here and awkwardly ramble for a while. I'm hoping you guys got any questions or things you'd like me to discuss. Sure.
Can you just talk about investigative journalism? Like, what type
Sure.
of stories did you cover and like the turnaround?
Yeah, and investigative journalism, it's a funny thing. Several places I've worked at times they will create an investigative journalism beat or an investigative journalism team. Well, all journalism, if it's done properly, is investigative. That's kind of a weird term. It all should be. Typically, the way we think about it, if we say we're doing a big investigative piece, that's what it is. It's more than a quick hit or work on it for a couple of days and get it out there. It's more of a bigger project. It can often comes from tips. A lot of people, when they think about investigative journalism, think about, oh, you went and dug through some records and you uncovered this. Most often it's a tip from somebody else. Someone who works in state government calls or sends a message and says, hey, my boss has been embezzling money, or this is going on. It almost always goes back to people and talking with people. The best investigative journalists I've known and worked with, and I've worked with some really good ones. Anna Wolf at our place right now, one of the best. They don't just dig through records. They know how to talk to people. They know how to get people to talk to them, to tell them things they might be uncomfortable telling. That's a big part of it. I mean, a lot of people in their minds have that in their mind, that, you know, you're sitting digging through records and, aha, I've got the story. Yeah, it almost never works that way. I used to work with a guy for years and years back when we had desk telephones. The phone would ring and he would always say, this is it. This is the big story. Call the Pulitzer Committee. And he'd answer the phone and, you know, be his wife or something. But I always thought that was funny. Any other questions? I may have missed the mark on what you were wanting to know about investigative journalism.
It was just basically what type of stories are y'all covering and the turnarounds. Does it take like a month to turn around the story, or?
That depends. I myself I've worked for over a year on a story, or continuing stories. I've worked longer than that, or some of what you would call investigative pieces you'll turn around in a week or so. It depends on what it is. Typically, for us at Mississippi Today, what we consider a real investigative story is going to at the least take weeks. And an investigative story is almost never one story. The real hard work, the real impact you're going to have is when you stick to it. And that's hard to do. And I'll tell you, having worked with a lot of reporters over many years, some people can't do that, can't stick with something, you know, and a lot of times you've got to do your regular work too. You can work on this as you can or whatever, and that's hard to do. The sticking to it and running it to ground is the hard part, because in the meantime, you're going to have sometimes powerful political officials saying you're a liar, quit looking into that, calling your boss saying they're lying, don't look into this. The follow through is the hard part, always. And, you know, you work on something so long and you hit a dead end. You figure out what you've been working on is not true, not what you thought it was. You got to scrap it. You got to start over. You got to go in a new direction. So sticking with it is the key to investigative journalism. Sure.
This week we seem to have encountered a few different people getting hung up on. Like, they would make a call to get some information and people would hang up on them. Do you have any tips, how to get people to talk to you, how to, be resilient in the face of that?
Is that just this week in particular, or it just happened to happen this week?
I just had a few different people mention it this week, that it happened several times.
Calling from like the Prince or student media or something?
They were calling from our center to the school district, or
Oh, okay,
or
okay.
to a city government leader, and there were some hang-ups that were.
Sure. The answer is yes. I've had that happen many times. I've been hung up on. I've been yelled at. I've been cursed. a guy who was a candidate for U.S. Senate once had a press person who, I kid you not, hung up on me, which he did all the time, then called me back to hang up on me again. Yeah, that happens. There's no magic answer. It's communication, it's people skills, and we don't have subpoena power. We can't force someone to talk with us. Persistence, again, kind of back to the follow through. They hung up on you, well, call them back, go to their office. I mean, I've gone to people's houses. Sometimes they don't like that very much at all, but sometimes you got to be persistent. Sometimes you got to make sure you're being professional and courteous, like any other job or business or communications. Make sure you're doing your part, you're being professional and all. Usually it's just persistence. Maybe that fifth time you call them, maybe they won't hang up, or they'll be so mad you keep calling that they'll say, "What do you want?" Beyond that, I don't know a magic answer. This can be good and bad. Sometimes if it's someone on a lower level, you can go above them and say, "Hey, they hung up on me." Sometimes that'll make matters worse. Sometimes you can go below them and see if someone else knows what you want to know. But I'm curious, is it some super controversial topic you're calling about, or are they just being jerks?
We called the Piggly Wiggly to see if we could fill in the grocery store. They were not happy with us calling more than once.
You were going to give a struggling grocery store free publicity. It wasn't a real controversy or anything like that?
We're covering the SNAP waivers that have been filed in other
Yeah,
states,
yeah.
how it might look in Mississippi. And we
Okay.
simply just want B-roll. We're not going to, associate it with you, but if you are scared to be associated with it, they hung up.
Yeah, I don't know. To this day, I have that. I'm a native of Florence, Mississippi, and I don't know if any of you know, that's the hometown of our current governor. He graduated with my younger sister, but anyway, if I were to get him on the phone right now, there's a good chance he would hang up. So that's
I have a question for that.
part of it, I guess.
So, obviously politics is always politicked, if you will.
Sure.
But given, a lot of the recent just rhetoric and, just
Vitriol.
yes. How do you, as who covers government, who covers politics, how do you navigate that in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
A lot of my answer is going to go back to what I was talking about with investigative journalism: persistence, follow through. But all right, I've been in the 30 years I've done this or whatever. I've seen the last 10 years there has been a sea change in what you're talking about. It's not just, people are from different political parties and they're going to disagree. I mean, a lot of it gets really personal these days, whatever. One thing that always helps is get to know as best you can the people you're going to be dealing with regularly. I deal with a lot of legislators from all kinds of different political backgrounds and philosophies or whatever. And look, people are people most of the time. If you deal with them straight up, you're polite, courteous, professional, for the most part, they're going to respond to that or try and do the same. That's not always the case. And again, we're in a very, I don't know how you would describe politics these days, but it's either persistence or, just making sure you're doing your part to be professional, courteous. things like that. One thing I've run into, and it's really gotten intense, is being accused of being in the bag for Republicans or Democrats or whatever. And it's funny, it seems like the first half of my covering politics or whatever, first half of my career, it seemed like I was mostly accused of being a Republican, it seemed like. Then that's when Democrats ran the state for the most part. That shifted, and then more recent years, it seems like I more often get accused of being in the bag for Democrats, which I guess if you're, whatever party they're in, if you're making the powers that be uncomfortable, you're probably doing your job. So, I don't try not to take it personally. And this field, journalism, I mentioned, being professional, whatever, but at some point too, you've got to kind of grow a thick skin. I've had, people criticize me or treat me in ways that I felt were totally unwarranted, unfair, but that's life, That's their right to feel that way. So I try to move on, not take it personally. Anyway.
What would be your advice for one of the students who might be interested in getting into government and politics? Like, what would be the best way to start building those relationships?
Sure. Government or politics, journalism or more government and politics? It's like, I may not have good advice if they actually want to go into government. One thing I've seen, and we've hired, we're growing. Mississippi Today has been growing, so we've done a lot of hiring recently. My team has grown. One thing I'm looking for these days, politics and government is one of those fields where it's hard to make a story or a newscast or whatever clear about complex topics. So I would say the key I'm looking for a lot of times is the ability to write or communicate clearly. The politics part of it, you can learn, and you can learn that quickly. You're going to be in it, it's whatever, but really clear communication skills. I mean, that's not just politics, that's journalism, broadcast, you name it. But sometimes these days it seems like we're getting a lot of applicants that they're really good at working with data. They're really good at working with video or social media or digital stuff. And it seems like more and more maybe people haven't spent enough time or worked enough on clarity of communication, be it writing. And I can speak mainly to the writing. I've never been a real broadcaster. But for the writing, the key to getting there, I've always thought, is reading. Read good writers. Go read journalists or others who can write clearly. Be it Ernest Hemingway or, all the usual suspects. But reading is part of the key to that. But that's one thing, certainly it's important to have education and training in politics or political science or whatever, but if you can't communicate a story, all the political knowledge in the world doesn't do much good.
I was going to ask, since journalism is a broad thing, they have different types of journalism. What advice would you give to people who want to narrow it down to what they want to do, or would you suggest that they stay broad?
Well, I guess you hit on the key words, what you want to do. That's the key. I mean, there are different skill sets between print, writing, journalism, and video, broadcasting, or whatever. So, I mean, first off, figure out what you want to do. I got lucky. Like I said, I kind of lucked into that first byline at the Student Prince, and I really liked what I did or whatever. And I forget what the old cliche is. If you like what you do, you never do it, or never work a day in your life. I won't say it's been quite that, but it has been fun. And I mean, just try a little bit of both of it. If you feel like your thing is the video, the broadcast, the public speaking, which you can see I'm terrible at, you know, maybe lean that way. If, like me, you more enjoy the writing and editing and stuff like that. What's your major?
And I've been kind of doing everything. I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go.
Okay. What year are you? Okay. You still got time to figure it out. You don't like one a little better than the other?
I kind of like them equally.
Okay. Well, okay, that's another good thing. That's all shifting and blending. Much of my career, I was a newspaper print journalist, and that's what we did, and we typed it up all day. They printed it overnight. Well, that has changed. I have to run a podcast now. We do vertical videos. It's blending and merging, so it may not be quite the tough decision it might have been in my day as for you now, because multimedia, at Mississippi Today, we have just created a new video team that we just did a video documentary, really good, in fact. So that is changing. You can do, to the point of probably journalists, y'all's age, you're probably going to have to do a little bit of all of it. It's probably not going to be as easy to just pick one element of that. So, but you still have time. You can figure it out.
I was just wondering what your experience covering Katrina was like, because you said you were working at newspaper.
It was wild. I've, like so many things I've covered, it was unprecedented. I didn't know what to do. None of us knew what to do. You essentially wake up one morning and where you work and everybody lives is kind of blown away. So it was really tough. A lot of my colleagues at the Sun Herald at that time lost their houses. So for months, they were living in RVs in the paper parking lot and still having to work every day. So hard to explain even what they went through. I didn't have a situation quite like that, but it was tough. It was all unprecedented, and it showed me the power of journalism, though. I mean, like nothing else ever has. We never missed a day of print, and the first day after the first week after the storm, we literally had to just hand papers out. No one could get through to deliver or whatever. But people wanted that info. We ran back then, one of the very early blogs, I guess you would call it, and it helped people reconnect with each other or find missing people. And that was one thing. It showed the power of journalism for a community. I mean, I feel like our work for years after that helped the coast recover. We went and covered Congress when they were considering, whether to give the coast money to help rebuild and all that. And I feel like we made a difference there. That's one thing that sticks in my mind. It just showed me the power of journalism.
Like, we were about politics earlier. Say, like, for a journalist who is either reporting on something, like, politically related, but doesn't know all of the inner workings
of the system, whether that be statewide, nationwide,
Right, right.
Do you have any advice for like how to go about learning about those inner workings? I mean, obviously, look into stuff, go to like committee meetings, just kind of
Yeah,
listen in
yeah.
on that kind of stuff. But I mean, aside from that, do you have any advice that would help to like just understand it so you can write about it better?
Yeah, one thing I've told many young, especially covering the legislature, we've hired many young journalists who will come in their first time ever covering a legislature, and it's intimidating. They use all these wonky political terms. They speak in what sounds like a foreign, stilted political language. It's just hard to understand. One thing I always tell them is keep in mind, they have a lot of lawyers who have worked a long time to make it that way. So maybe the public doesn't quite understand. And I usually tell them, look, your job is to not understand every acronym and term they use or whatever, but your job is to look through that and tell all us C students back home what these folks are really up to, and to just learn how to decipher that language. That does take a lot of time sitting in committee rooms or sitting in City Hall or wherever, but most people pick up on that stuff pretty quick if you're immersed in it, if you're watching somebody. Just one time, a long time ago, I was trying to read some court documents, and they were dense. I was just struggling, and a lawyer friend of mine said, "You don't know the trick?" He's like, "Just scan for the verbs." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Most of it's gobbledygook. Look for a verb and just read around that, and that's the only thing it's actually doing." That turned out to be a pretty good trick with a lot of public records. But just approach it that way. That, as I always say, I'm here to strike a blow for the C students, but you're trying to become kind of a translator. And that means you do have to learn that stuff, but by all means, don't repeat it in a story. I've also read news stories that were so full of political terms and jargon that, it's like most people can't understand this. I don't know a secret trick to that, but like I said, being there and sitting through it, most people pick up on that fairly quickly.
Career that you kind of just had that you didn't realize that you chose the right path for you? Or like was there like a certain time where you was like, yeah, this is it for me? Like,
I told you that time at the Prince when they paid me for just sitting there writing something. I'm like, man, this beats scraping old insulation off of buildings, or working out in the sun. As far as one particular time, I can't recall other than very briefly, years ago in North Carolina, I took a non-journalism job very briefly. Now, it was editing college textbooks, but I think that was one moment that I realized, like, this going in and sitting in an office every day and every day is kind of the same, that's not for me. I don't want a real job. I want to go back to being a journalist. And to me, that's been the allure of this, what I've enjoyed. 37 years since I've been doing this, I've never had the same day. There's always been something different. I've learned something or messed something up or whatever, but almost no 2 days have been the same. And I've gotten to do so many different things. I've covered, car wrecks, plane crashes, fires, everything that can burn, I've covered it. Covered presidential visits, you name it. So, that's been the fun thing. No 2 days are the same, even to this day, even being more of an editor. It's still, it's like a lifelong learning experience. So that one stint when I tried briefly to do something else, it made me quickly realize I wanted to keep doing this.
Okay, this one's kind of about like your inspirations. So when you first started, what inspired you, and what inspires you to keep going now?
Honestly, what first inspired me, I don't know if you were in here, I mentioned I was going to flunk out of chemistry. I thought I was a chemistry major, and I just wasn't doing well, and I had to figure out something else to do. I guess early on, one reason that even made me think about trying this is I love to read. I've always loved to read, and I think that just plays hand in hand with writing. I don't like doing the same things over and over again, like I just mentioned. So, you know, the thought of going to a job, clocking in and doing the same thing every day, day after day, just never appealed to me. And once I started in this, I realized, you know, this is great. You know, I get to do all kinds of stuff and can even go piss off powerful political people sometimes, you know. I mean, honest, this is going to sound maybe trite or cliched too. I mean, I live here, I'm a taxpayer, you know, I want this to be a good place to live or whatever. And again, journalism can have an impact on that for the better. It always has, and it always will. That gets debated maybe more than it should be these days, but a free press and journalism is a good thing, and it can have an impact on your community as much, if not more, than any other institution. Sure. One goal we have as an organization in Mississippi today, and I know you and I had a conversation earlier about this briefly, the multimedia thing, that's exciting. It's been a long time coming and probably long overdue, a merging of media, social media, print, broadcast, or whatever. I'm not really sharp or technically savvy or whatever, but that's obviously the way things are going. Look, I started reporting pre-cell phones, if you can imagine that. You can try, but to the point, look, I remember one time in a meeting, we were going digital. This was at a newspaper, but we were still printing. And I remember somebody in the meeting said, you know, pretty soon everybody's going to be reading their news on their phones. And this was pre-iPhone anyway, and we're all like, he's crazy. What are you talking about? And, you know, of course, he was right. Who knows what's coming next? We may have, you know, media receptacle chips implanted in us, you know, as kids or something. But no, earlier in my career, I feared or dreaded or might have even opposed some of those changes. But now, as to my goals or what I think is coming or what is needed, is that merger into multimedia. Whereas I dreaded it, and I still dread giving speeches, but I've done a podcast now for a couple of years, and I enjoy it. never thought I would. I was terrified the first times I ever had to do it or whatever. What's that? I did, but, not avid, but yeah, I did. And I've been doing this one a couple of years now, back pretty good while back at the Clarion-Ledger. I did what nowadays would be called a podcast. I think that term may not have been invented. We did video that we streamed. I can't remember if we even had a name for it. And yeah, like I said back then, I thought, oh, what a chore. Nobody's going to, why are we doing this? Let's stick to print. I know how wrong that was of me. And I don't know what we're on the precipice of with AI, but it looks like it's going to be huge. I think it's going to make things like the iPhone pale. And I'm trying not to dread that or shy away from it. I'm hoping I can embrace it. I may be getting a little long in the tooth to totally do that, but I'll give it a try. And I'm actually excited. Certainly, you guys will be the ones to determine it. We can get it right or we can get it wrong. It could probably go either way. That could be said for wherever social media is headed and probably where it's been to date. But you folks are on the edge of some huge stuff when it comes to news, technology, how news is delivered, how it's consumed. One day, 37 years from now, maybe one of you will be telling people, I reported or I worked in this before AI really, this happened or whatever, and they'll be going, really? So I'm really looking forward to embracing that, and also doing my best to make sure we keep our compass when we go into our moral compass, ethical compass, whatever you call, because again, some of that technology or dispersion of media also has the potential to really go awry and cause bad things. It can cause great things with, medicine, media, you name it, but it can probably also cause some bad things. So I figure I'll try and do my part to keep tabs on that or point out if it becomes obvious one way or the other. It's irritating.
That was like the fourth time it's gone on.
Right.
I have one last question.
Okay.
So, everyone loves a good political scandal or,
Sure.
things like that. So what's been one of the wildest or most interesting stories that you've covered that have kind of been tied to some kind of political scandal or political craziness?
There's several to choose from, but one pops into mind. This was back in 2014 when Thad Cochran was running for re-election to the U.S. Senate. That's one of the wildest things I've ever seen. You guys may not remember any of that, but a supporter of his opponent, this is when the Tea Party was becoming a thing. A Tea Party candidate was running against longtime Senator Thad Cochran, and somebody from one of his opponent's supporters broke into Thad Cochran, the nursing home where his wife was bedridden, photographed and videoed her for a hit piece campaign ad, which is awful. But anyway, that guy gets arrested for breaking into the nursing home. That whole race, though, was just one bit of craziness after another. There are accusations a la the Joe Biden era. There are accusations that Senator Cochran shouldn't still be there, was too old, having difficulties. Let me think. Other supporters. on election night somehow or another got locked into the courthouse where they were counting votes. Anyway, just that whole campaign, I think, was one of the crazier things I've seen. That was, for Mississippi, the first true social media campaign where social media played a role. Back then, it was a little bit different. There was no TikTok or anything, but Twitter was coming into its own. And I remember I was on Twitter then. I would write a story. I would have a Sunday story that ran on that political race or whatever. This was the first race where one campaigner or the other would hire trolls for Twitter. I would wake up when that story came out and I would have 2,500 angry, hate-filled Twitter messages, you know, and that kind of stuff. And that was brand new. I mean, that was bewildering, you know. I'm showing my age. It's hard to explain to younger folks how the very early days of social media could be very strange and bewildering. But that one sticks out. I could go on about that race, but it was a wild one.
Well, I got a question. A
Yeah.
lot of the journalists in here are really early on in their career.
Sure.
Can you give them an example of a mistake you've made and come back from? Because they have yet to make these big mistakes, and I was just wondering if you could share one that they might be able
Let
to
me
learn.
think. Just one. I've made plenty. If you're gonna do this job, you're gonna make mistakes. I've made them from pretty small and mundane. One thing that will make you cringe, and it shouldn't happen, but it has. I'm trying to think. Like I said, I'm not going to pretend I don't make mistakes. I'm trying to think of a really good one, and one that is okay to tell an audience. there have been some that I've made or others have made. Many years ago, there was a deputy sheriff speaking to a board of supervisors and a crowd about a jail issue. I think the jail had been housing a lot of inmates that the community didn't want in their community, didn't want them being housed at the local jail. The meeting was heated. I was trying to understand whatever people were shouting or whatever. This deputy jailer or whatever, I thought he said he sent those buzzards out. I thought he called these inmates buzzards, which I thought was unusual, so I wrote it down, went and did the story. He calls up, "Are you trying to get me killed? All these, maximum security tough inmates think I called them buzzards." He said, "I said buses." I'm like, oops, had to write a big correction that day. It happens. No one's perfect. You try to move on. If I had more time to think, I could come up with plenty more. And but it is going to happen.
And how do you as a political reporter, how do you maintain relationships where you're being critical of, someone's running for Senate, being critical of something they've done in the past? How do you maintain that relationship so if they do get elected, they stay in touch with you?
Sure. Again, you try to be courteous, try to be straight up. A way more veteran reporter than I, years ago, I'm trying to remember exactly how she put it, but she basically told me, I'm not going to do it justice, you would have to hear her say it, but she said, "Look, don't ever get anyone that doesn't need gotten, but don't ever fail to get someone who needs getting." I thought about it, I'm like, okay, don't pull punches, if someone has done something that needs to be pointed out, do it. Don't give them a break, but also don't go after someone unnecessarily, I guess is what she was saying. So it's kind of how you have to play it. Most politicians, they know how things work. Most of them don't take it personally and can be professional about it. Some can't. It's the way it goes.
Do you think you're seeing that more and more nowadays?
Yes. Politics has become personal. I probably can't say some of the words I think it's become, but yeah, it's I don't know. People demonizing each other from one side to the other. It's awful. As I said at the outset, I hope this generation of citizens, political leaders, and journalists can help resolve that. Let's get back to all being Americans. Can disagree, but
I thought I heard somebody say, like, okay.
thank you guys for putting up with my nervous rambling. Thank you.
Thank you all for attending Media Mentors this month. Next month, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but you can always go to our website, recjcnews.com/nm. Group of media mentors from next month through the spring of 2026. So you're able to see who's going to be coming up each month. And Geoff, if you're available to, stick around for a few minutes. So if anyone
Sure.
has anything that they'd
Absolutely.
like to speak with Geoff about or be able just to meet him, you have to meet with him. So thank you all again. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. He's our new video team. He's our video editor now. Yeah.